You're tuned in to Voiced Thoughts Talk Show and Podcast, a forum where we discuss and explore society based topics while advocating and providing information and resources to the community through an unscripted, unfiltered, and authentic approach. Listen on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and Apple Music. Watch us on YouTube. Join our Facebook group. Follow us on social media, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook at Voiced Thoughts Talk Show and Podcast, your society-based channel. Welcome to another episode of Voiced Thoughts Talk Show and Podcast. I'm your host, and my name is Danette Mahabeer-Turner, Mrs. Kentucky Petite USA 2025. I'm super honored to represent the entire state of Kentucky in the national pageant for the Petite USA organization this July in Chicago, Illinois. Before we get into today's episode, allow me to take the time out to highlight our sponsors. Our title sponsor, Goodwill Opportunity Center. Goodwill helps individuals to overcome barriers to self-sufficiency, enabling their clients to overcome those challenges and achieve their goals through support that's personalized to the client's needs. Visit them today at 1601 Broadway Street, Paducah, Kentucky. Our episode sponsor, LuvLux Beauty Studio. LuvLux embraces the profound impact of beauty with skilled stylists who are committed to delivering exceptional services personalized to each client's needs, guaranteeing a rejuvenating experience with every appointment. LuvLux empowers individuals to become independent contractors, offering them the chance to cultivate their businesses and their brands with guidance and backing from the LuvLux team. So visit them today and call them at 270-415-5417. You can watch Voice Thoughts Talk Show and Podcast on YouTube. You can listen on iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Apple Music, and Spotify. Join our Facebook group. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at Voice Thoughts Talk Show and Podcast. Now the moment you guys have been waiting for, episode 10. And today's topic, secret recipes for success. Our special guest is none other than Dr. Anton Reece. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, and congratulations to you.
Well, thank you. I know that's a mouthful right there before we introduce you. And I specifically and intentionally pluralize the recipe. I know that your book is called The Secret Recipe for Success. And I just believe that there are multiple recipes, right? But this is your recipe, and we're going to get into that today.
Yes.
So let's start with the heart behind the book. What inspired you to write Secret Recipe for Success, and why now?
So Danette, a big part of the inspiration to even get the focus, the discipline associated with writing books really has been part of my journey for the last 30 years. I've been very fortunate in different roles to do a lot of speaking to various audiences. And over time, it was this constant encouragement that I need to get some of my insights down in writing. And as part of my process, I don't use scripts.
I love
and
that.
So one of my challenges was, in the absence of not having scripts, the material to write a book. So it began then really though feedback from individuals across time, right, that really pressed this issue. Fast forward, I was at the University of Tennessee for 13 years. And during that time span, I was working on my doctorate, which requires a lot of rigorous writing. And it wore me out, I must say. And so the passion and the drive to even pick up on this feedback to write a book, that was very, very, very tough.
Wow.
And I thought it was important to be in the right frame of mind, meaning the right space, the right time, to really get into the discipline of writing whenever that occurs. And so one part of the impetus was finding also the right time and place. Third, and as importantly, my mom's, as I call her, my mom has raised me. I'm from Barbados, she's from Jamaica, 5'3" plus.
Wow.
And she turned 84 April 10th. And as a legacy gift, really accelerated the timing that I needed to get this thing done.
Wow.
And I was approached by a publisher as well. So the timing was, really worked out really well. And that really was in many ways the genesis behind this book and the importance that I felt that it was a way of giving back through my journey different insights along the way
I love that.
I think could then inform and help current, emerging, and new leaders as well.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. And so you've mentioned a little bit about Tennessee University. You've had an incredible 30-year journey in higher education and communications. How have those experiences shaped your philosophy of leadership today?
Yeah, so oftentimes we're informed by both the challenges and opportunities along our journey. My journey began in the Caribbean nation of Barbados. I was very fortunate, educational-wise, to attend a prestigious school called the LuvLux School. At age 10, not fully capturing the significance of the trajectory that will put me on for leadership, but Mom's had the foresight, really and truly, that she knew if I passed that 11 plus exam, as we call it back home, and got into the LuvLux School, it would transform my life, because LuvLux School is 280 years old, sits to this day in a field surrounded by canes. At that location, we produce arguably a significant amount of the nation's leaders in every endeavor and on the global stage, right, including myself as a college president. It was fueled by a combination of our motto in Latin, which is "Passant quia possibilenter," they can because they think they can. And we had teachers from across the British Commonwealth, which we were honored at that point in time, who demanded high expectations. And as importantly, from a leader's perspective, don't get caught up as much as what you're surrounded by as it is who you're surrounded with.
I love that.
And so through that, really put me on this trajectory athletically and academically. And it was really through my athletic journey and successes that I was able to get a scholarship, track scholarship to Eastern Kentucky University. So that's how I uprooted to come south, if you will, sacrificing. Whereas Mom's at that point in time was headed to Miami. Miami, Miramar, which is still her home. And the journey began there, right? And it's really true, the whole athletic transition and the cultural transition coming from one country to another, particularly from the island weather, the island culture, island food, the climate. So it was really a defining, if you will, portion of beginning that leadership journey that then took me through to Paducah, to Knoxville, Tennessee. And over that span of time, just the different experiences really molded, if you will, a lot of these ingredients. And as I like to use the metaphor, a recipe, for success.
I love that. Wow. You described your leadership style as empowering others to find their voice. What does that look like in practice at WKCTC and beyond?
So it starts first with that commitment and understanding of purpose. I think purpose is one of the most powerful words in the lexicon. On my desk, I do have a personal mission statement that says, I have found my voice, literally.
I love that.
Background in communications, public speaking, etc. But my mission is to empower others to find their voice. And in my daily work with students, that they can find their voice to achieve their academic and career dreams with purpose. For the faculty and staff that I'm fortunate to lead, I can provide them with the resources for them to reach their aspirations in their respective fields, professions, that type of thing. And so for me, it is very important that I really embrace this idea of empowering others. And that's the way I go about trying to provide,
all
provide
the things that you're doing. I love that. And so as someone who has led WKCTC to national recognition, you didn't think I was going to touch that, did you? And historic milestones, what do you consider key ingredients in your recipe for institutional success?
Wow, that's a real good question. So, I believe that at the core, with a metaphor of ingredients, as I use in the book for the recipe for success, let me use an island analogy. World-class cuisine. People rave about the weather, the beaches, but the food. And so I use a metaphor that there are ingredients that are key to recipes.
Oh, absolutely.
But you got to get the right ingredients, the right mix. And then part of the secret sauce is marinating. It takes time. So metaphorically, from a leadership perspective at the college, I try to define what those ingredients are for success. And we ground that ultimate ingredient in a culture of excellence. We could be good, we could be average, but to be a top ranked college in the nation, 5 times in the top 10, it's a lot of key things that got to be happening right? And so we hire with intention. We support with retention. We provide resources with intention to ensure that whatever skill set that you bring to the table, both known and beyond, I want to be sure that we're providing you with the atmosphere and the resources to be the best at what you do. Because as I say to my team, when you do what you do best, I get to do what I do best, right?
I love
And
that.
so that culture of excellence is one of the main ingredients and expectations that we then undergird into this idea of essential qualities. So we got 3 essential qualities for faculty, for staff, and for students. And the student piece, as a quick example, we really believe as an essential quality, this idea that students from all walks of life, very eclectic group of students, we believe as an essential quality that they lean into their preparation to be successful in their journey in college.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
And that includes attendance, being prepared for class, capitalizing on the academic support resources to ensure that they are, doing the heavy lifting, as we would say, for them to be successful. So it's that combination of culture of excellence and, really through these essential qualities, talk about ways in which we got a recipe.
All right. So we have a display of your book right here,
Yes.
Secret Recipe for Success. So in your book, you emphasize innovative strategies. So what's one strategy that you believe today's leaders, especially in education and business, must adopt to remain relevant?
Yeah, so innovation is a real powerful word, right? And it isn't coincidental that the visual, because the title and the visuals are very significant for cover of books, right? That's what draws attention.
Absolutely.
And you'll notice it's a chess player. So I believe that chess is perhaps the best illustration in terms of innovative leadership because it's about being strategic. At the core of chess, as in comparison and contrast to checkers, checkers is a quick game. You can cycle through several games in an hour on average with good checkers. It's a great game, but it's quick. It's transactional. It is here. Chess, you have to simultaneously see what's happening here that's relevant, and then you got to be looking 2-3 moves beyond, right? And that's where you get into transformational, transactional. So innovative leadership at its core involves intentional strategy, involves intentionality of the distinction between leading transactionally or leading transformationally. And the key difference is when you transform things, it doesn't remain in its original form, and the impact is so much more far-reaching. So that requires us, including myself, to remain relevant through getting out, seeing what's happening across North America and the globe, best practices, research, talking directly to business and industry, see what's trending, trends like things like AI, robotics, computerized. If we don't intentionally go out to get it, you quickly lose relevance. And second, and as importantly, we want to be constantly engaging students to ensure that we're meeting students where they are. And so we need to have feedback directly from students because they bring varying levels of needs. There is some distinction between coming straight out of high school versus a veteran, a displaced homemaker, somebody who's been out of school 10, 15, 20 years in the same classroom, in the same space, right? That we got to meet them where they are.
I love that. Well said. Well said. So you mentioned that you were raised in Barbados. So how did your upbringing in Barbados and your path through the U.S. institutions influence your outlook on leadership and resilience?
It's huge. It's huge. It's huge. It's huge. I would argue phantom math that probably 70% of people, the thought of leaving their home country, going to another, is probably not even in play. But it was a sacrifice that I believe was necessary for me to be on the path that I'm on. It's huge because there's a saying that I used to keep on my wall. You never truly really know who you are till you get outside of your culture.
Wow.
And you'll never discover the ocean unless you're willing to leave the shore. And so for me, it was through that journey, I was tested culturally. And that's huge.
Oh, yes.
So the comforts, the weather, taken for granted, the food, taken for granted. It's a different world, right, coming from Barbados into Kentucky. So I had to adapt, modify, and adjust really accordingly. So the cultural underpinnings within itself was a huge factor. The other part is that coming out of the islands, still even in 2025, there certainly are pockets that we were raised into where sacrifice is real. It's a sacrifice that you weigh very, very, very heavily when you're talking about, moving you and or a family. Totally. Is really incredible and powerful. So that island heritage and upbringing was serious business, as we would say. But it really comes into play when it's tested.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. So you've spoken to over 600 audiences nationwide with consistent message. What do you find resonates the most regarding, all the different speeches you've given, and what do you find that's the one thing that most resonates with your audience?
Gosh, boy, that's some really good questions here. I would probably put at the top of the list. I think audiences figure out very quickly whether you're credible or not. Okay. Do they really believe in what you're saying, what you're presenting? Are you talking down at me, or are you talking to me, or as I prefer, are you talking with me? I try to come from a perspective of, I was defined very early in my career as a motivational speaker. I think motivation is important. I see myself more as an empowerment type speaker, more like a life coach, if you keep it that analogy. And so I believe that what has resonated with audiences as I've presented has been the combination of credibility. I think the illustrations that I try to use to really emphasize this whole idea about consciousness, because I think, unfortunately, what I've discovered over time is that different audiences, when I'm on a college campus, presenting to folk in prison, talking to core prisons, etc., oftentimes there is a limited awareness of the rich resource right there at the fingertip, but it could be miles away. And the connection to that resource could just be that game changer that alters the trajectory of their lives. And so I really try, by way of my preparation, to really don't underestimate my audience, really kind of study my audience. But I really try to connect consciousness with transformation.
I love that. Wow. And then you mentioned strong influences, faith, family, and mentors. How have they helped shape the wisdom that you are currently sharing on stage, in school, with your book, in your leadership journey?
The two most transformative tools, I believe, in society at our disposal is spirituality and education. On the spirituality piece, for over 30 plus years, I rise every day with an intentional reflection period of prayer and meditation. I ask for four things: good health, wisdom, knowledge, and discernment. I believe that process helps me to settle, which is a huge theme that I hope comes true in the book. A lot of it is about settling the self, and faith provides that vehicle to provide some settling, some grounding. Faith provides me with both a compass and a barometer. It provides me direction and also to do temperature checks along the way as I make decisions or impacted by decisions. Faith is that seasoning, because life comes at you hard, right? And it throws people off. Sometimes when life comes at them, oftentimes in unexpected ways, and faith helps to ground that. Faith also orients the way in which I engage my family and the sacrifices that I make. My wife and I kind of were very intentional that before I got into this role at the president's level, I want to be sure that both our girls had finished college.
Wow.
And we were able to achieve that because I knew the demands of what was involved in it. Faith also connects and keeps you grounded with the importance and the significance of really good mentors. I've been unbelievably fortunate and blessed.
That is amazing.
To cross paths with individuals, many of them strangers, didn't know me from Adam.
Wow.
But reached out, saw something to pull me in. And so this whole idea of standing on the shoulders is equally as important as paying it forward. And so my faith feeds that because it is a powerful transformative tool. Last and certainly not least, there have been moments in my life, and there's a saying that goes, I believe, feed your faith and your doubts will starve to death, because there are doubts as part of this journey, including leadership. And one of my favorite religious references isn't necessarily a biblical passage, but it's a popular poem called Footprints, right? The band walking on the sand, two sets, one set of foot tracks, inevitably. The theme in it ultimately is there are moments in this life where God has to carry us. And that is where faith really has been able to sustain me throughout life.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing that. All right, we're down to where we need your advice for those who are listening and watching. So what advice do you give young leaders, especially students from underserved or underrepresented communities who may struggle with confidence or direction?
Yeah, so it starts first with, as my teachers did in Barbados, setting the expectation that regardless of your lot in life, however you've come to us, it may be a loved one that told you that you had to go, or life came at you, you wanted to make a change. It starts first with really instilling confidence. And so we have a couple of mantras at the college. One includes, you've got this. Another one is never underestimating you. It's very powerful when someone who you don't really know affirms that you're in the right place, right time, headed in the right direction. So that's one. Two, raising the level of awareness of resources. Gosh, I dedicated chapter 5, dear college students. That was a big one. One of the last activities that I did at the University of Tennessee before coming in back to Paducah and in this presidency was a panel conversation. Basically, it was a combination of, they say hindsight is 20/20, or if you had to do a do-over, what would you do differently? And the themes that flowed included really wishing that they had engaged more in learning more about the resources of college. What is this thing called college? How is it linked to purpose, right? I used to ask students in the early years, so what's your major? Quick answer. I slow them down when they go, what's your purpose? That's a deeper question. That requires a lot more. We're all chasing purpose. And so getting students connected to resources, comfortable with accessing those resources, getting away from the imposter syndrome. Some students really struggle, like, do I really belong here? And so I think it is important that we equip and empower, and then we got to put them to work, right? And so my mantra has always been with students, you got to meet us halfway. You got to do the heavy lifting, but you got to meet us halfway, right? And then we create history and a path and a legacy, for you and your loved ones. And I look forward to seeing you begin with the end in mind with graduation, which we just celebrated 2 in May, and we'll do 1 in December. That's where it all comes together, right? And especially as students come across that stage, especially the ones who you got a personal connection with, that they've really struggled on their journey. To the untrained eye, it just looks as a person walking across the stage, but there's a journey.
Oh, absolutely.
And that connects with us.
I love that. And then, of course, before you go, let's talk legacy, right?
Yeah.
What do you hope your leadership and this book will leave behind for the next generation of educators, leaders, and community builders?
Gosh, if I had to think of real quickly 3 things, first and foremost would be I was intentional in spreading 10 ingredients because, again, you got to know the ingredients and the right mix. All ingredients matter. Totally. It is up to the individual to figure out the ingredients that they need. The ones that they underestimate, I push that really, really big, which is probably point 2, that there are too many leaders that underestimate, I think, through lack of humility, or blinded by moments of success, still tested. But the ingredients that involve that self-reflection, emotional intelligence, self-awareness, self-critique. I've met some of the best over time, over 30 years, who could have gone from good to great until they got criticized, because handling criticism is an ingredient. Underestimating the X factor, or health, mental and physical wellness. You got to stay on top of that, because I don't care how skilled or talented you are, it'll come back and bite you. So I hope that by outlining the recipes with intention, got a series of case studies at the very back to really enhance that reflection for individuals to really reassess. And then ultimately that we'll be able to, add to the mix, because one of the prime needs of the hour is we do need more leaders. I would even emphasize young leaders, getting more engaged in communities, in offices, in professions, where we could take things up really to that next level. And I hope that this book provides a conduit for some to likewise pay it forward.
I love that. Where can people who are watching or listening get a copy of your book?
Amazon.com.
You heard that right. And so it's Secret Recipe for Success. You definitely need to grab you a copy of Dr. Reese's book, and I'm so excited. I can't wait to read this book.
I'm excited. I'm excited and looking forward to just ongoing, promotion and marketing. And I've got some book signings coming up, and it's a great opportunity to engage people in that setting.
That.
So
I love that.
I'm looking
and I
forward
love
to
that
it.
you're applying your experience into, cultivating something that young leaders and just other leaders can, just get a copy and learn some insights from.
Yeah.
And I truly enjoy you being here today. I've learned a lot, and I can't wait to go back and re-listen this and read this book and all of that. But from a practical standpoint, what's one recipe step from the book that listeners could start using today in their own lives or career? So just giving them a sneak peek.
I think that one key step is probably a combination of getting it started. A lot of times we put things off. It may be that decision to come back. It may be in life. Life comes out as hard, rejection, failure. I say you embrace it, but get started. Get started. Whatever it is that you've been thinking of doing, it's kind of like the annual New Year's resolution that never really sustains, because I don't think that we really put enough thought into the sustainability of it. But I think it's just important to get started and leave room, right, that sometimes you may not always get it right the first time coming out the gates. But it's about our persistence. And is that intentionality? And is that reimagining? I say so often, I've evolved as a leader. It's very important to evolve. Where it was 30 years ago, 20 years ago, 10 years ago, same situations, I view them very differently, because I recalibrated a lot through. Before we can manage others, we got to first organize ourselves.
I love that so much. Thank you so much for sharing that. And so what's next for you? Another book? New initiative with WKTC, or is there something else? I mean, what should we be watching for
well,
next?
I would say that it will be 20, 30 years to write the next book, that's for sure. Certainly, I think the book leads up to the journey to the presidency. I will look forward to working backwards to some sort of memoir at that point in time about the journey through that lens as a president and some insights there. I've done a lot of encouragement over the years. Society is very challenged with particularly relationships and engagement between young men and women, providing some insights, because we need stronger relationships, stronger families.
Absolutely.
The people of Ghana says that the ruins of a nation begins in the home of its people. I think some opportunities there. And then certainly, opportunities that I continue to have occasionally to consult, to present, to me is a way of paying it forward. And the visibility and hopefully the availability will provide an opportunity to really expound upon, some of the key ingredients when all is said and done within this book.
We'll be watching, and we'll be, following your journey, because it's definitely one of excitement and empowerment. And so thank you so much again for being here, Dr. Reece.
Yes, indeed.
It's been a great pleasure.
Yes,
and so before we go, I want to take the time out once again to highlight the sponsors of episode 10. Goodwill Opportunity Centers, or title sponsor. They help individuals remove barriers to self-sufficiency, enabling their clients to overcome challenges and achieve their goals through support that's personalized to their clients' needs. Visit them today, 1601 Broadway Street, Paducah, Kentucky. Or episode sponsor, LuvLux Beauty Studio. LuvLux embraces the profound impact of beauty with skilled stylists who are committed to delivering exceptional service personalized to suit each client's needs, guaranteeing a rejuvenating experience. LuvLux also empowers individuals to become independent contractors, offering them the chance to cultivate their businesses and brands with guidance and backing from the LuvLux team. Call them today, 270-415-5417. Again, you can watch Voice Thoughts Talk Show and Podcast on YouTube. You can listen on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and Apple Music. Join our Facebook group. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at Voice Thoughts Talk Show and Podcast. I have been your host. My name is Danette Mahabeer-Turner, your Mrs. Kentucky Petite USA 2025. I will see you on the next episode. God bless.